Happy days.
Oh, that's out. Oh, Stone. Ollie Stone. How good is it watching wickets?
Best batsman in the world, that Jack Leach.
Pastor, your celebration looks like you're sending everyone off all the time.
I don't really send much to anyone. I did send Tom Walls off, to be honest.
Don't blame you.
Oh, here we go.
Here she is.
Caught that one twice.
Great celebration. Rubik's Cube in your pocket.
Oi. Shearer.
Oh, bold.
Oh, that's lovely. Lovely, lovely, lovely.
Who's this?
Well, before the video starts again, we'll welcome everybody to today's webcast. It's brilliant to have so many with us. We've got a lot of people with us today. Everybody will be pleased to hear some good numbers. So thanks for joining us. We're doing something slightly different this week. Obviously, with Amy and Jeets and with WCCC, we focus very much on them and their career and their development. But what we thought we'd do this week is bring a panel together, certainly with a specific expertise, and this time in pace bowling, and just have a chat for an hour and talk about the skill, their particular developments, and they've had very different paths to where they've got to, this group of players. And it'd be fascinating to hear their views on the topic of fast bowling. So I'm going to be very quiet over the next hour from here on in. I'm going to pass you over to your regular host, Mr. Oliver Hannon-Dalby. Hello again, Ol.
Oh, thanks for having me, Paul. We need to get some theme music sorted for this. We need the theme tune.
What do you suggest?
Oh, I don't know. I'll leave it up to you. You're the technical guru. Okay. Thanks everyone for tuning in again. We've got some illustrious guests here. We've got Issy Wong. Say hi, Issy.
Hello.
We've got Liam Norwell, Rapido, Warwickshire bowler, and Richard Jones. You'll all know Jonesy, the coach on the academy. Yeah, Jonesy.
Hi guys, thanks for having me, OHD. Thanks for inviting me on your show, mate.
It's all right, mate. If you're good, you might get a second invite. We'll see.
Fingers crossed.
So, as a little icebreaker, we thought we'd ask both Issy and Liam and Jones, I suppose. Not necessarily, the best wicket you've got in terms of the biggest name, but the most satisfying wicket you've got in terms of everything just went perfectly. Or what is the best sort of wicket you've ever got? So we'll start with Issy, I reckon.
For me, I think the one that stood out the most was the national final last year for the under-17s, 40 over. So kind of in the last over, I think I was defending 6 runs or something. First ball, there's like a run out missed. The whole team's in panic. And second ball, I think I clean bowled the girl and just kind of under the pressure of the circumstance to be able to look back on that and think, actually, I've executed my skills perfectly. I've hit my length, I've hit my line, just clip top of off. And under the pressure of the situation, to be able to do that, I think that made it quite memorable for me.
Love that. Nothing other than bullet at the death. Pasty, for you?
Probably for me was a couple of years ago, Mark Cosgrove playing against Leicester. I played against him probably 3 or 4 years in a row when he's playing for Leicester. Obviously, he still is playing for Leicester. And he always had a will over me. Didn't necessarily hit me around the park, but I just could never get him out. And then I just bowled a really good spell to him down the hill at Leicester. Ran 2 or 3 back and then managed to hold one up and just nick him off and go through to the keeper. And it's just one of those where you're relieved because you can get him out. It's taking you a couple of years, but you can get him out. But it was actually a plan that I was going to. We'd set a bit of a catch in, mid-wicket in, just trying to bowl straight and then just hold the other one up. So it was just kind of a plan coming together and, yeah, getting a good batsman out.
Love that. Jonesy, anything for you?
Yeah, similar sort of lines to Pasty there. It was more about the plan, really, the game plan. So it was my debut for Warwickshire, 2014, at home, so Edgbaston against Middlesex. And I think it was a game that you went down, actually, Al. Yeah, you tore your side, yeah. So we were a bowler down. We were ahead of the game, so it was not like we were desperate to take wickets or anything like that, but we made them follow on, and then they got off to a good start. I think it was Sam Robson and Chris Rogers opened the batting. They got off to a decent start, both got 50s. I think Jeets got Rogers out, and then a couple of overs later, we had the ball reversing, and I hadn't quite got it right, but Righty and so Chris Wright and Keith Barker were with me mid off and mid on, and we were chatting about plans and that kind of stuff. And then we just sort of settled into a plan of trying to reverse it away from Sam Robson, the right-hander. So we sort of stuck with that, and I was chatting, and the lads were keen for me to sort of continue with the plan of going away. Gradually dragged him across the stumps, and then after about 2 overs of going away from him, decided to just try and slip one in, reversing it back to him, and luckily hit him on the pad in front of all 3. So that was quite nice because it was my debut as well for the Bears, and then we obviously went on to get the win. So yeah, that was probably the most memorable one in terms of planning. So that was good. I
do remember that. I remember you tailing it big. You had to sneak it in that I left the lads in the trench as well, didn't you? That was
yeah. I thought I'd get that in there. Yeah. Early on.
So I'm going to come to you first, Pastor. Talk to us about prep. How do you prep for a day's play?
I'll go 4-day cricket. So pretty much 4-day cricket. If we know it's a bowling day, I aim to be at the ground kind of 8:30. We'll have a breakfast, get into the bit of chill, cup of tea, then get in the gym for a stretch. Have a good 10-15 minutes of stretching, then move it down onto the actual park. Just get a couple of laps or just a couple of shuttles just to get myself moving, and then I'll pretty much go straight to bowling. So I've done my stretching in the gym. I'm now loose, and I think sometimes the best way to get loose is to bowl, and then also you get the feeling of bowling when you're stiff, bowling when you're tired, which is something that's quite hard to replicate. So I bowl. It's quite variable. It quite depends what my workload was the day before or such like. But I generally bowl 2 or 3 overs in the morning through to the mitt, making sure I've got at least 5 or 6 balls of my full run. Then I'll kind of go back into the team dynamics, the team warm-ups. So we do dynamic warm-ups, a lot of hurdle work, a lot of running. Kind of, as you know, Jack likes making us run kind of 20, 30 meters every morning repeatedly. So we do quite a few bits like that. And then if I'm happy with how I bowled earlier, then I'm done. If I'm not, then I'll go back and with quite a specific focus, whether it's, right, I'm going to nail 6 balls to a left-hander, or I want to get 3 or 4 shaping away nicely. And then just kind of get myself into a good headspace, really. If I'm happy, I'll get up in the changing room and I'll just chill before we have to go back out on the park. And then, like I said, if I'm not, I'll have a little bit of a bowl, maybe just have a chat with Pop, or sometimes I even will just look at some footage of when I bowl well, just to keep those memories in my mind.
And would that change for a shorter format game, or would you just keep it pretty similar?
Yeah, so kind of T20, 50 over. 50 over is quite similar to 4-day cricket, because obviously similar start times. It's still quite a long day, so the warm-up's quite similar, really, maybe a bit more intense, but kind of definitely 50 over T20. I'll bowl my variations. I'll warm up in my warm-up. So instead of potentially practicing bowling to a lefty, I'll bowl 6 Yorkers, or then try and make sure I nail them, or I'll get some slow ball practice in. And then I think is also with T20, it's my warm-up. I want to be a bit more intense, a bit more high energy, because that's obviously the game. You have an hour and a half out, hour and 20 minutes out there just running around, intense. So I want my warm-up to match that, so I feel like I'm ready.
Love it. I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are on this, Jones. I mentioned this last week with Jeets, in terms of, like, I've played with a few guys who might bowl a half a run up and then be bowling way over the line, i.e. bowling massive no balls at the time, and then sort of wonder why when they come into a game they're bowling no balls and they feel rubbish off their long run. And especially for the boys and girls watching, who are very likely to have limited overs to bowl every day, whatever those restrictions might be. This is my thoughts, and you know, other people might think I'm wrong. I think it's sort of mad not to bowl off your full run in the morning of a game, even if that's literally just 6 balls. I think it's crazy.
Yeah, definitely, mate, 100%. And I agree with everything that you've just mentioned there. And obviously, Pasty's a really experienced guy now, so it's really great to get his insight as well. You know, for me, the prep side is hugely important, and it's something that, you know, for myself personally, I took quite a long time as a young pro to understand the value of it, and not just the physical side of it, but also the psychological side. You know, making sure that you're confident going into the game for the reasons that you've just said there. You know, if you've got a no ball problem and you're not trying to address that in that 15, 20 minutes before a game, then, like you said, you're probably going to be struggling when the pressure's on in the actual game. I was going to ask you a question, actually, OHD, about it, because obviously from playing with you, I remembered, you know, you were probably someone like Pasty, by the sounds of it, who liked to bowl quite a lot. I remember you bowling quite a few overs off your full run. I just wanted to ask you how that's changed throughout your career as you've got a bit older, obviously more settled in the side now. Have you changed that? Do you still bowl that large volume pre-game, or have you sort of cut back a little bit now because you've got that volume in the bank?
It definitely has changed. It almost changes on a sort of game by game basis as well. So I'd be very similar to Pasty. I'll get loose in the gym, and then invariably, no matter how much stretching you do, you know, you always stiff first ball. That first ball always blooming kills, doesn't it? You never stretch yourself enough to make that first ball not hurt. It always hurts. Yeah. Then I bowl off a short run just to get loose, and then I always make sure I never don't bowl off my full run. The reasons I mentioned, just to feel the ground that day, feel the wind, feel whatever slope there might be. I have to bowl off my long run. Now you're right. I used to be, maybe when I, you know, a bit younger and didn't have the overs under my belt, or maybe I was feeling rusty, I used to bowl 4 or 5 overs in the warm up. That's changed. I now bowl off my full run until I'm happy, until I've covered up off, you know, what I need to do that day. So in a red ball game, that might be 6 balls to a right hander, 6 balls to a left hander done. Where it's awkward is in T20 or 50 over cricket, you think, I certainly try full run, and then I'm thinking, right, 6 balls to a right hander, 6 balls to a left hander, stop balls. I'm thinking, right, I've got to do a few Yorkers to a right hander, then a few Yorkers to a left hander, then chuck a few slow balls in, and before you know it, I'm like, blooming no, I bowled 4 overs here, need to sort of chill out a bit because you bowled too much. You bowled 10 overs in a 50 over game, and then add 4 on in warm ups. That's crazy.
Particularly,
yeah, it definitely has
after
changed.
a full day.
Yeah, exactly. Don't bowl as much, but I'd stick by bowling off my full run in warm-ups, every day of the week. I think you'd be crazy not to, really.
Can I just jump back in there?
Yeah, go.
So, talking about bowling full runs, when I was younger, so 2012, so my second professional season, I was playing quarter final of the T20 at Hove. Never played at Hove before. It's quite a big slope for anyone who doesn't know. I didn't bowl my full run once. I probably nerves my first big TV game. Didn't warm up very well. As I was walking off, Nigel Long, the umpire, said to me, "You are miles over every ball there." First ball, I bowled, big no ball, prize hit me for 4. Next ball, free hit, 4. So firstly, I've gone for 8 off or 10 off to 1 ball. But then secondly, you do what you practice. Like I bowled every ball, no ball. The umpire's already seen it. He's watching for it, and my game didn't go well from there. But it was probably being a bit young and naive, but also just nerves of a big game. But like I said, if you don't go off your full run, if you've never played at ground before, you just don't know what your footing's going to be like. And like I said, I was at Hove down the hill and it just took me. And I think it's just a big learning curve for me and something that I've taken with me since. So it's just one of those, if you've never been to a ground before, just make sure you bowl for full run as well.
Yeah, I think the key. Sorry, mate. I think the key thing there is, and like the message I've tried to get across to like the bowlers and the pathway, and the EPP and academy this year, is that you need to view that time, that prep time before a game, as an opportunity to get better, particularly as you're younger. It's a training opportunity. It's not just you're not just turning your arm over and getting ready for the game. You are doing that clearly, but I think if the young guys watching and the guys in the pathway and further on, and if you can get to a habit of viewing that period of time there, like you guys have just said, opportunity to practice your skills. If you come off after bowling for 10 minutes, the one-day game, and you've hit 4 or 5 Yorkers, then that's you're walking off before you've even started a game, knowing that you've got better.
Yeah.
So I think it's just reframing that time really, and viewing it as a training opportunity.
Yeah, and that's just, it's always overs in the bank. So like you said there, if let's say for instance, it's a one-day game, you've got a bowler and I've practiced a load of Yorkers, brilliant. Next day we might be playing, and we've blown a good wicket. We're at Portland Road, nice footballs, happy days. Next day we might be playing Moseley, and it's absolutely poured down. There's no run up. There's no ball through wicket. Well, you know what? At least I bowled yesterday, and some days you just cannot prepare. Sometimes there's a piece of mud on the side of the outfield where you cannot get off your full run. But as long as it's not too long since you bowled your last York or bowled off a full run, then it's just overs in the bank all the time, and it overs in the bank. That's what I think. Yeah,
100%. I think it goes back to that that thing I mentioned at the start about it being not just a physical but also a psychological benefit as well. So if you, like you've just said, if you know that you've got that, those skills and those overs in the bank, as a good phrase, then psychologically it's going to sort of soften the effects of those situations. That's a really good point.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, Issy, we're moving on slightly now. The grip. I want to know how you hold the ball and what your thoughts are on the grip.
I've never really thought too much on it. I've always, from when I was like 6, 7, I've always just kind of put the ball in my hand and however it felt comfortable. I've never tried to stray too much on that. So I haven't got a cricket ball. I should have brought one. But I try and keep my fingers. My fingers are generally quite close to the seam, but they're never kind of on it like that. They always tend to be like that. I'm just trying to keep this bit of my thumb just on the seam at the bottom. But I like it not too loose, but not too tight. So just kind of there, so I can get a finger just in the gap between the palm and the ball, and it's all about feel for me. I think I don't look for anything, but if I'll flick it up a few times, and if it feels like it's coming out nice, then I know I've got it right. But I think it changes with ball to ball, especially having played red ball cricket when I was younger, kind of club stuff, and then moving on to playing pink ball, white ball. You find that with different balls, you've got to hold it in different places. So I think that's been quite a good learning curve for me recently, learning that, pink ball is going to have a slightly more prominent seam. So you can, my fingers for pink ball will probably be a bit wider just to still have that seam in the middle. But for a white ball, you kind of get the seam on the very side of the seam tends to be really flat, whereas the middle tends to stick up more. So I like to find if I put my fingers a bit narrow on a white ball, then I can really get down the back of it when I'm going through my action.
Yeah, like that. And I think you're dead right there about giving the ball a flick a few times and just seeing if you can let go, even just doing this and let go of the ball coming out seam up. Sometimes, you know, I might be in indoor nets and a young lad's holding the ball, a young girl's holding the ball, and you say, go on, flick that and make it come out seam up, and the seam might be everywhere. So just doing those little things, especially now we're all at home, just playing around with different grips and how you can get the ball almost like a yo-yo just to see how it comes out with different grips, I think is a really, 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 really good point. Pastor, are you a bit different, am I right, thinking, with your grip?
Yeah, a little bit. Quite cool. So kind of brand new ball, unconventional, just seam up, might go split finger, might go slightly tilted there. But because of my action, I fall away a little bit. For an away swinger, I actually hold it how most people would hold an in swinger. So I think that's there. So basically, because I fall away, the last thing that touches the ball is this middle finger. So if I hold it there, a lot of the time my middle finger will push it out and it'll go scrambled. Whereas I worked out with a bowling coach at Gloucestershire when I was playing there, if we just tilt it slightly, almost like an in swinger, my middle finger will actually push that seam out straight.
Yeah.
So we worked it out after I was just scuffing balls up by trying to hold it conventionally. So it's something that I've chatted with Pop a lot, and I'm now at a stage where I'm a bit stronger. I can hold myself up a little bit more, so I can keep the seam going straight from there. But my stock ball, once the ball is a little bit older, is as almost an in-swinger grip for an away swinger. Again, it's because I'm from this angle here. So the last thing that touches it is this middle finger, which pushes it out straight.
But that ball would come down in that perfect little way.
So that little video Grief has put on at the start, nearly all of the balls that I've swung away there, I've held pretty much like an in-swinger grip. But like I said, my middle finger is the last thing that touches, so it comes out straight. But it's just because I fall away. So when I was younger, I wasn't strong enough to hold myself up, and we just had to work away to swing the ball. We did a lot of kind of basic camera work this far away from at my release point to try and work out what's going on. And like I said, it was coming out just all scrambled. So we just had to play around with it until we found something that worked. And it's been going all right for me since.
I was going to say, like, obviously everyone's at home right now, the boys and girls at home. Literally, sometimes if you just get a bit of electrical tape or whatever it might be, blue tape, red tape, coloured tape on the ball, and iPhones and iPads are that good now. Just like Pasty's saying, if I was bowling in this direction and your mum or dad could hold the phone behind your hand and just see what happens to the seam, because you'd be amazed. You think you're holding it seam up and it's coming out and it's in swinger. Like Pasty says, it might be doing that. So you might have to practice holding the ball like this, and then that might come out bolt seam upright. It's just worth trying those things. And the wobble seems in vogue at the moment. It's a useful ball to have. We want wobble seams to come out like that. We don't want wobble seams to be cross seamers. So even just playing around with stuff like that, I think is really, really useful at home at the moment. I don't know what you think, Jonesy.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And the grip is one of many things in facets of bowling, which is individual. Like Pasty said there, I'm similar to Pasty in terms of pasta perpendicular with where I release it, but I actually canter the seam the other way. So again, the ball comes off my middle finger at the last point as well, but I would go that way rather than Pasty being that way.
Right.
And again, that just goes to show, doesn't it, that it's all individual, playing around with it. But I think the most important thing is working out what works for you.
Yeah.
And something that Issy mentioned when she was talking about the grip, and it's something that I saw actually watching a Stuart Broad clip. So he did a clip when they were out in Sri Lanka, and I think it came from WCCC. So they were talking about different variations and stuff, because obviously going to places like Sri Lanka, you need. You can't just run up and expect the ball to do all sorts for you. You've got to have a lot of weapons in your armory. And they were speaking about, how deep or how set back they were holding the ball. Mm-hmm. It's just interested to hear what you guys think about that and whether you play around with it, because I know from watching cricket, I haven't spoke to him about it, but I always thought that always saw Broad as someone who held the ball quite far at the end of his fingers like that.
Yeah,
and he was talking about WCCC setting it right back, holding it, almost having more finger on the ball, and still trying to get that ball, the seam bolt upright to get that shape, but it also coming out a little bit slower. So I just wondered if you guys had played around with that.
I haven't. I mean, I hold the ball. But no, luckily, I've got big hands. Mine sits around there. So probably similar to what Issy was saying. I can't. A couple of fingers behind the ball there.
Yeah.
I did see that clip, and yeah, were they talking about getting more backspin? It's all like the deeper you set it in your hands, the more backspin you could get on it. It comes out a bit slower, like you almost undercut it a bit.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was quite an interesting clip actually, and we might be able to send it out or something for the guys if they haven't seen it. But yeah, it was just I think it was setting it back a little bit, and like you say, getting that hand underneath it. And I think Brett Lee used to bowl with it as well. I think he used that as one of his variations. It's just interesting to think about, how you can try and develop things within your game.
Yeah,
it's really interesting what you said about the backspin on the ball there, because that's something I've focused on quite a lot this winter. Actually, because I'm only 5'6.5", I haven't naturally got that high angle to get the bounce on it that some people like Ollie might do. So I was working on trying to really get my hands down the back of the seam. So we're speaking about the more revs it gets, the more when it hits the deck, it's actually gonna kick up and bounce, as opposed to being a bit skiddy. So yeah, it's really interesting that the grip, depending on how far back into your hand you have the ball, could affect kind of backswing and then backspin and then further affecting bounce. So
definitely, and like I said earlier, getting a little session with a tape ball, a seam taped up, and just having to play around the garden, see how can I get a bit more swing, how can I get an in swinger, how can I bowl a slow ball, all those sort of experimental sessions you could do right now easily, and they're generally the most fun sessions you have. Certainly a lot more fun than a yo-yo test or a Blake test that the club might make you do. Going to move on.
Sorry, I just quickly, mate. Just before you move on, there, just another important thing I think for the guys, the boys and girls watching, and something that came out of a few sessions throughout the winter, coaching various age groups and stuff like that, is it's really, really important that once you've settled on your grip and and you're confident, where you need to be holding the ball. It sounds a bit obvious, but it's really important to make sure that you can repeat that. Because had a few sessions where I asked a couple of players, a couple of bowlers, the question, out of 100, if you had to bowl 100 balls, how many of those times would you be holding the ball in exactly the same place in terms of the same position and all that kind of stuff, all the basics that might get overlooked. So I think it's worth just viewing the grip. It sounds really basic and really simple, but you've got this thing. This is the only thing you've got to try and outsmart the batsman. Yeah. So it's worth thinking about being as consistent as possible. And it might sound for the guys, for the boys and girls watching, it might sound really simple and a really basic thing, but it's probably worth just always being on top of that and making sure that it is consistent.
Definitely. You mentioned someone there, Stuart Broad, and if you watch Stuart Broad in a test match, he literally stands at the back of his mouth, doesn't he? Does a little relaxed, deep breath, and he looks so precise in what he's doing. Yeah. Second best wicket taker ever, compared to I've played with guys who literally catch it and just run in, and you're like, how are you holding the ball there?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Broad is literally the most precise man in the world. I think that's got to be a good lesson, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we're just talking about, we want to try and make the ball do something. If Pasty's holding the ball like this and it does something, great. If Izzy's holding it deep and it does something, that's great. We want the ball to do something, whether that's bounce, whether that's movement, whether it's a bit more swing. Yeah. The ball to do something, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And just another little point before we move on there. Really good point you said there. And bowling, like batting and like anything about cricket, is a big part of it is problem solving. And we talk about, like Paul and myself and the other coaches talk about trying to create self-sufficient cricketers, like guys who can think on their feet. So if you're bowling and it's not really doing anything and you don't change anything, then you're probably going to get the same results. You're probably going to carry on getting no wickets and going for runs, and the batter's job is probably going to stay nice and easy. So you're gonna have to, sometimes when the conditions aren't going for you, you're gonna have to think on your feet. You're gonna have to perhaps move the ball around, change a different grip, use your angles. All those things will go a long way to help you become self-sufficient as a cricketer and thinking on your feet.
Love that. We're going to move on. We've talked a lot about grip there.
Yeah.
I didn't think we were going to talk that long about grip. Run up now. I'm going to start with Pasty because I know I'm jealous of Pasty's run up because he looks like an absolute juggernaut running in, and you can see the batters literally panicking as he's running in compared to me running in like a T-Rex. Pasty, what are you looking to get at your run up? Yeah, exactly.
My run-up's actually something I've struggled with a lot over my career. I really find it hard to get my rhythm. So it changes quite. When I say it changes, I mean where I start from changes quite regularly. It's always within a metre of each other. But I've had years where my run's been 17.5 metres, 18.5 metres, 18. I've even gone to ridiculous lengths, 18.25. You know, so I just in my run up, what I'm looking for me to be is to be balanced. When I run in too fast, my arms and legs get ahead of me, and there's nothing behind the ball. I might as well just bowl off 2 steps. And if I run in too slow, there's no momentum there to actually get me through the crease. So I think we've actually chatted about it before. We're almost quite different. Like you kind of start quite steady and then build up, whereas I hit the top of my mark quite hard and then slow, and like get into a nice steady bound. And that for me seems to work. A lot of people would probably say that's the opposite of what you're taught. You're normally taught to start slow and accelerate towards the crease, but for me, I just found I lost my control if I did that. So I start fast, I hit the top of my mark hard, and then I cruise into the crease. And then I want to have a consistent takeoff point. So when we were in Spain just before lockdown happened, it's something I worked quite hard on. We were measuring out roughly where I need to take off to make sure my foot's well behind the line. And because that's when I'm the bowling well, my takeoff's quite variable. I can be taken off different spots between a length of like that. So if I can be consistent in a run up, know where I'm taking off from, the rest of it takes care of itself, really.
Love it. And is it again a much more athletic run up than I've got? Talk us through what you're thinking when you're running and what it feels like.
I actually did some work with Jonesy over the winter on my run up, and we looked a bit more in depth about when I do take off, where my kind of weight is. So I think we took some videos and worked out that actually when I was just about to take off, all my weight went back, which meant I just lost all my momentum, which I'd sprinted in for the last 20 yards to get. So we actually we put a little spot on the floor, and we just where my takeoff foot was, and just worked on when my foot hit that spot being over my foot, so keeping all my momentum going forward. So I think that was quite important, making sure that all the hard work I'd done to get to that point actually went through into the action, because there's no point, running in and getting good pace up and good running technique, and then getting to the crease and losing it all before you've even let go of the ball. Absolutely. So,
what are your thoughts, Jonesy? Your sort of key things you're looking for from a run up?
So yeah, similar sort of things to Pasty and what Issy said there, definitely. For myself personally, when I was still playing, I wanted to be as straight as possible. So you might play around with your angle depending on different conditions. If it's not swinging, you might come talking to myself as an away swing bowler, I might come a bit straighter. If it's not swinging, looking to bowl a channel, as opposed to if the conditions suit and it's going around corners, then you might want to create a bit more of an angle. But I think generally you want to be going as straight as possible, and I think that's because something that Issy alluded to there, which is momentum. I think you want to be fast bowling or trying to bowl quick. I know it's not all about pace, but if you can do your skills and you can do it quicker, then that's obviously going to be a good thing. And for me, that's all about taking the momentum that you've built up in your run up, and then transferring that through your action. So if you're hitting your front foot contact at big angles for whatever reason, then you've got to redirect yourself to go straight, because subconsciously where the target is. So you're always going to be trying to bowl straight. So it just makes sense to me to be trying to go as straight as possible. And I think that what Pasty said there as well about the pace of the run up, you certainly don't want to be going too quick, but also at the same time you don't want to be going too slow. And that's one of the most common things that we've seen, or certainly I've seen since I've been in post at my job, is particularly at the start of the pathway, bowlers not hitting the crease hard enough for whatever reason that is. So for those guys, those boys and girls at that start of the pathway, you can have huge gains in your output just by changing your approach. Trying to run as athletically as you can. Pasty spoke about rhythm. That's obviously hugely important, and that's going to be different for everyone depending on lots of things like how they are, what type, where they are in terms of their development and that kind of thing. But yeah, I think I just lost my train of thought there. What was I saying before I said that? You weren't listening, were you? I was talking about the pace of the run up. Yeah,
That's it.
yeah. So you certainly don't want to be going too quick, but you don't want to be going not quick enough either, because you can get.
On the pace of your run, what did you think when you were running in? Because playing against you a few times, kind of 2016, 2017, when you were at Leicester, when I was at Gloucester, we actually commented a few times on how nice your run up always was and how aesthetically pleasing your run up and action was. It was always quite smooth. It was always rhythmical. So what would you think when you were running in? Because, like I said, we would look at you and think, geez, he's got everything like knocked down there. He looks lovely running in. Everything's just under control. So what would you actually think? What was your processes?
It's a bit embarrassing that, Jones, isn't it? You've got such a lovely run up.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for that, mate. Nice to hear. No, I think the most important thing for me was my rhythm, which is what you alluded to as well, Liam. So I knew instinctively whether I was in my rhythm or not, and it's something that again I struggled with quite a little bit for various reasons. But if I didn't hit my rhythm, then I knew it was going to go, or I knew I was going to make my job a lot harder at the crease. So running in, I was just conscious of trying to hit my rhythm. It's very difficult. It's difficult to explain what that means, and I think for the younger guys, that's just going to be a case of sort of trying to create that feel as they get older and bowl more overs. But speaking to you guys here, you've bowled a lot of overs yourself, so you can understand what I'm talking about when I say create that feel of that rhythm, and that's obviously going to be very individual. But that's what I was thinking about, was trying to hit that. So for me personally, the first sort of third of my run up was really important in terms of my foot placement and working my knees, driving my knees forward. Because if I hit that in that first third of my run up, I knew then I was in a really good space and I'd hit the crease and be able to get through the crease nice and quick, which was something that was really important to me.
Jonesy?
Yes.
Just in terms of the people listening, I think maybe I've always thought of it about a pattern of footwork. If you think about your rhythm as a pattern of footwork that's in your mind.
Yeah.
It's almost like a drum beat, an off-kilter drum beat, isn't it? That you're running in with. In terms of just expressing that to people at home, that might be a better way of thinking about it. It's a pattern, isn't it?
Yeah.
That you feel as you're running in.
Yeah, and that's what I meant. That's what I was alluding to really by saying it's quite hard to describe, because that pattern of that drum beat is going to be different for everyone. But it's certainly, you're right. I sort of understood it in my own head as using that first third of my run up as sorting my feet out. So that's what makes sense in my head. I wanted to sort my feet out basically, because then once I hit that spot after about a third, it wasn't definitely a third. It just felt like a third. Then I knew that I'd be able to settle into that easy sort of stride. Then I could open up my stride pattern, and then a little similar to what Pasty said. He wanted to start quicker and then find that rhythm and then carry that momentum through. Pasty, you might feel like you're slowing down, but if we got you through the timing gates, you probably don't. You probably just carry that speed all the way through.
You probably should not accelerating anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So you've built up all that momentum and you carry that through. So yeah, and I think another thing to think about and talk about as well is, if you're thinking about the start of the pathway, those young boys and girls right at the start of the entry point of the pathway, we spoke about it with the grip about being consistent. Again, the run up is hugely important. So if you're not And again, Liam, you mentioned it as a professional cricketer. Sometimes you can get into a frame of mind or a frame of playing where you're not consistent, and then you have knock-on effects there. And I'm glad you said it as well. The takeoff point is hugely important, and everyone's going to be different. But I think just the consistency of running up, knowing what your run up is, and marking it out, whether that's striding it out. But most guys now use tape measures, but that might not be feasible for the younger guys. But at least striding it out, so you know exactly where it is, you know exactly where you're taking off from, you know exactly which foot you're taking off from. So all these things that really need to be really consistent time and time again, because as I said, our job's difficult. We've got to take the 10 wickets to win the game. So the more things that we can be in control of, which are really basic things, really, and if you nail them off as young players, young developing players, I think you'll just give yourself a better chance of succeeding, and also psychologically you'll just feel more prepared, better prepared to go out and play.
Yeah.
On the back of that, just quickly, something that Paul said about the drum beat as you're kind of running in, doing your run up, just made me think, like, I can remember like being like 10, 11, kind of 12, that really early age. And it's kind of, I think it's the one thing that's kind of stayed the same in my process throughout that time is that when I run in, I always used to count I still do, I'll count my steps. So I know that when my left foot hits my marker, the right foot's then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 is my left foot taking off, I think, if I've done the maths right. And then I think I don't count back foot, and then front foot is 10, and I'm doing it. And I know coaches always say to you, when you get to your mark, the only thing that's in your head is the ball, whereas kind of for me it was completely different. It's probably not a good thing, and Jonesy's probably going to get me in the indoor centre next winter and be like, right, stop it. But
nobody thought
I always just
Definitely.
count, and there'd be nothing else going on, just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and it was it's just a little thing that always kind of stayed the same.
Your head, and that gets you in good rhythm. And I think much like the grip, everyone here has clearly got different ways of doing it. I'm a lot slower than everyone on the screen. I've got the luxury if I try running at 100% every ball and I get up to about 12 miles an hour. So I'm just literally trying to run flat out. I don't have the luxury that Pasty does to think, oh, I'll cruise in now. I'm not that quick. So I'm just trying to run flat out. But if that works for you, that's perfect, I reckon. And just like Jonesy said about the grip and the run up and your action, that's the only way we can impart energy onto the ball. So yes, we want to try running as fast as we can, but you can't be running in at 110% and be erratic at the crease. So you want to be trying to run in as fast as you can with some control. That's what my thoughts are. What do you guys think?
No, definitely. And Issy, you'll be pleased to hear that. I certainly won't be trying to get that out of you 100%, because look how far you've come doing that. I'd be a fool to try and change that. And it reminds me of a story about Glenn McGrath. I don't know if you guys have heard it, but apparently when he ran in, he used to sing a song to himself. And I think that song used to change from day to day, but he used to run in singing a song. So clearly one of the best bowlers ever. Doing something like that, you don't need to be focusing on the ball. Whatever works for you. So yeah, I was going to say one more thing then as well. It's just slipped my mind. Yeah, back to you, Outstay.
I was going to move on now, and I want to ask Issy about the fast bowler's mindset. Now, this is something I've seen in first hand and first person from you, Issy. You attended a fast bowling circuit with the pros at Warwickshire, with the first team squad, where Pop gets us doing all these sort of crazy exercises, and Issy absolutely smashed it and put us all to shame. So what is your mindset as a fast bowler running into ball, Issy?
I think it started when I was younger. I was always very competitive, and obviously I started playing with kind of lads, and everyone's you kind of go and they're like, oh, you don't want to get you don't want to get out, you don't want to get bowled by a girl, you don't want to you don't want to bowl slower than a girl. And actually, like for me, like aged quite young, I just took it all as kind of fuel and just thought, oh right, he doesn't want to get out to me, I'm going to get him out, or I'm going to bowl faster than him. And that just kind of spurred me on from quite an early age. So I always had that mindset, oh, I want to bowl faster than so-and-so because they should bowl faster than me because they're a boy, but I'm going to show them that actually, I can do it. And I think that just kind of stuck with me. And even now, when I went to that session, I just wanted to go and kind of take part and obviously learn off you guys, how you guys train, but actually almost try and put a marker down and say, actually, you know, women's cricket, it's, you know, it's, we can play at the same pace as you got, well, within reason with it as you guys. And that I think that it's all a mindset thing. I think you see, I've played with a lot of girls who actually played less boys cricket and they're kind of less aggressive, whether it's batting, bowling, or even in the field. Whereas for me, like the people I look at and think like their mindset is spot on, they tend to have played just really competitive cricket the whole time. And I think that's the way forward, because even, you know, if you're having a bad day, you can still be right, not feeling great, but I still want to beat this person. And just that little kind of undercurrent almost of competitive energy is just always kind of drove me on. So I think that's kind of what, got me.
Love that. Love a bit of fire in the belly. I think it's a common theme, isn't it? If you look at the best, Jimmy Anderson, grumpy, miserable sod. You know, he played so many games of cricket. He must, you know, turn up to a day and warming up must be Groundhog Day for him. But how does he get himself going? You know, getting grumpy works for him. I don't know what you and Jonesy think, Pastor.
For me, I agree. You've got to be aggressive mindset. But for me, if I get aggressive, I try and have aggressive body language. But if I kind of take it any further than that and I say anything, I know I will lose my rag and I will stop focusing on what I'm actually doing. So for me, I want my body language to be aggressive. But when I'm running in, I'm trying to keep it as simple in my mindset. So if it's a brand new red ball, all I'm thinking is drive it full. And that's from the second I turn up to my mark, I'm just in my head thinking drive it full, drive it full, drive it full. If we're going for a specific plan, if I've got to bowl a bouncer, if I'm trying to bowl an innie or something, then my whole run up, I'm just handing myself over and over, right, bouncer, 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 or innie. And then in one day cricket, again, similar, Yorker, Yorker, Yorker. It's quite self-explanatory. But if I run in trying to be aggressive, I know I will go too far and I will not think about my ball. So, and that's just the ginger in me. So, yeah, so like I think you said earlier, Jonesy, about it looks like I'm giving everyone a send off in that little video montage. And that's, I'm not actually, apart from like I said to Tom Moore, for some reason he wound me up that day, and I did that, but I didn't actually bowl very well that day because I let someone wind me up. If I'm looking back on that day, I didn't bowl very well that day. But it might look like I'm having a word of batsman, but I very rarely say anything. I just try and let my body language do it because I'm quite a big lad. So I think naturally it looks like I'm quite aggressive, even if I'm not meaning to be.
I don't know if you've got what to say about that, Jonah.
Yeah, no, for me personally, similar to Pasty, yeah. Quite an emotional sort of guy anyway. So if I could quite easily go too far and spill over and get too wound up. So I had to really try and keep my emotions in check. You know, I can think about some of my worst days as a cricketer, as a bowler. I just wasn't able to do that, and I let everything get on top of me, and I got affected by too many things, and I stopped focusing on the things that I needed to focus on.
Yeah.
And when you do that as a bowler, you know, it's difficult enough. It's difficult enough trying to compete with the opposition. So if you get to a stage where you're also competing with yourself and you're letting too many things come in, then you know you're making your job a lot harder. So yeah, similar with Pasty in that. I'd just like to put in input here as well on mindset. I think personally, for you know, as a coach now, and for again thinking about the young players watching, I think it's massively connected to your preparation and how you prepare. And I mentioned it earlier. So if you're preparing well and you're viewing that time at the start of a game as a training opportunity, as an opportunity to get better, and you're not just thinking about it getting ready for a game, then I think that's going to massively help you psychologically. You know, and also thinking about training as well. So you know, we've spoken now about mindset in game, but also mindset in training. How good is that? What is your mindset when you're training? Are you actually fully engaged on what you're trying to do? Are you actually thinking about the ball that's just gone, and are you trying to change something for the next ball? Are you training your skills under the sort of relevant or appropriate levels of pressure? Because it's very difficult to, you know, I'll say it quite a lot as well, and I've said it quite a lot this winter. for the age group, for the county age group stuff, and EPP and academy, it's very, very difficult to recreate anything like the amount of pressure that you get in a game when you're training indoors throughout the winter. It's very, very difficult to do that because it's just, it's the nature of competition. So as soon as you step over that white line the first game, the pressure ramps up to levels that you haven't experienced for those 4 or 5 months. So you have to put pressure on yourself as a player and as a young player. And I think we've all probably heard stories of young players, some of the best players. And if you think about the ones in our generation, Joe Roots, Stuart Broads, I personally have heard a lot of stories, anecdotes about those guys and how they trained as a young player, putting themselves under immense pressure, testing themselves, and that's obviously stood them in good stead going forward. So I think it's really important as young players to try and understand that and view training, whether it's throughout the winter or that preparation time at the start of a game, try and view it as an opportunity to get better, put yourself under pressure, set yourself goals, and that way you'll build your mindset will improve. You'll build that mental toughness. I'm not a massive fan of that phrase, mental toughness, but I think doing that and training that way will only have positive effect on your mindset and on your psychological sort of development as a player.
Again, I think it's personal, isn't it? We've got 4 people here, and one of the best things a psychologist ever sort of got me to think about it was saying, imagine a spectrum where you got an assassin here who's cool as a cucumber, super chill, James Bond, and a warrior up here who's crazy, going mental, William Wallace in Braveheart. And where do you sit on that spectrum? Well, Jonesy and Pasty sound like they want to be chilled, they want to be assassins. I actually have to try and pump myself up a bit and think like Issy. Everyone thinks you're rubbish. Nobody rates you. This batter thinks you're rubbish. You need to ball as fast as you can here. I go a bit more towards warrior, which it sounds like Issy does. But for all you young bowlers out there, young cricketers, just play around. Bowling the next time you're in a game, does it work better for you to get pumped up, or do you lose control, or does it work better for you to just be chilled out? And again, just like run up, just like grip, it's personal, isn't it? It's absolutely 100% personal. We could go on here for 2 hours, I reckon, but we're getting short on time, so we're going to move on to a few questions. We've had a few questions fired in. Great question here from Vincent Barnes. During your academy years, for all of you, were you concentrating on taking wickets or try to bowl as fast as you can? What is the best way to do it? And do you think you try to bowl quickly first and then you learn how to be accurate, or do you think you learn about to bowl accurately and then you get quicker as you get older? What are your thoughts? Pasty, will go with you.
For me, I didn't really come onto the academy scene until 17, so I didn't really have a huge amount of academy scene, but when I was growing up playing cricket in Cornwall and I was starting to play men's cricket, I really focused on my lines, my length, my accuracy. Because if I just tried to run in the ball fast, it wasn't fast to the men. It didn't matter. I was 13 there, however old. So for me, it was work on my line, my length, my accuracy, and work out a way to take wickets. And then as I got stronger, as I grew up, the pace came. So for me, it was definitely the learn your trade first.
For me, it was the complete opposite. I think when I was younger, I was, very much just, I'm just going to run in and bowl as fast as I can. And then it's only the last kind of 2-3 years where I've actually kind of looked at refining that and actually controlling that. So I'd still describe myself as quite a raw bowler. But for me, when I was younger, the emphasis was always on, how fast can I bowl here, rather than I'm just going to bowl a good channel. But I think that's, again, it's like you said, it's up to the individual. So some people are more inclined to just hit a channel, and they'll, the speed will come when they grow and stuff later and get stronger. But for others, like me, I found it works just trying to bowl quickly and then refining that afterwards. But
do you know what your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'd agree.
Question,
it's a good question. Yeah, it's a good question. There's probably no right or wrong answer. But yeah, I'm probably more towards Issy. And I think personally, as a coach as well, I think whatever your strength is, whatever your super strength is, and whatever is getting you into the team or whatever is making you stand out, then try and first and foremost, as a developing cricketer, develop that, become really, really good at that. So whether that's bowling quick, if you're in the team because you bowl quick, try and develop that. Obviously, if you bowl quick but you're hitting the side netting, you're probably not going to be in the team. So there's going to be elements of weighing things up there. But I think whatever your strength is, get really, really good at that strength. And then, as you progress, as you get older, as you get more experienced, then you'll be able to. You've got the workload in the bank. You've got the experience. You're comfortable with your grip. You run up. Your mindset's good. You're probably in a position where you're preparing well. Then you can think about adding other strings to your bow as you develop. But I think if you're thinking about if you're trying to, I think personally, if you're trying to cover off too many things too young, then you might not, or you might lose. You might take the edge off your super strength. What's that saying? I'm trying to think of master.
Master of all trades, jack of all trades, master of none.
Jack of all trades, master of none. Yeah, I think you probably want to be a master, don't you? If you think about the best players that have ever been, they were really, really, really good at a certain thing that got them into the team as a young player, and then as they progressed and as they evolved, then they broadened their game. So what I'd say is never lose sight of your super strength, and never undervalue it, and don't lose sight of it too young. And if that is running in and trying to bowl quick, and you bowl the odd wide ball, or you bowl the odd drag down, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, because if you do bowl quick and that comes naturally, there aren't many young players out there who bowl genuinely quick. So as a coach, I'd much rather work with, well, probably not going to say that because it's probably not helpful, but if I get a young bowler who bowls naturally quick, I'm very, very excited about that. Very, very excited.
This is something that I had to skip over because we didn't really have time. But yeah, I've put here as a fast bowler, you've probably got 4 things that you want. The best in the world: bounce, movement, pace, accuracy. How many do you tick? And even the best. We're talking about Jimmy Anderson here. You can't tell me Jimmy Anderson's. I mean, he's quick enough, but he's not rapid. He's not Jofra Archer. But does he move the ball? Yes. Is he accurate? Yes. Does he get loads of bounce? Well, probably gets okay bounce, but so we're talking 2.5 out of 4 there, and he's the best bowler we've ever had. And much like Jones has said there, figuring out for you what you do well. You know what? I ain't got the accuracy yet. I'll work on that. But you know what? I get loads of bounce because I'm tall and I'm quite quick for my age. Great, brilliantly. You don't have to tick all 4. Like Jones said, maybe working on accuracy, you might end up bowling slow, and that's not good for no one type of thing. So figuring out that bounce, movement, pace, accuracy, sort of what type of bowler are you? I think it's worthwhile. Do you think?
Definitely, I 100% agree with that. Because if you think about those 4 things, you probably need 2. You need at least 2 probably to have a decent career, decent county professional career. If you've got 3, then you're probably going to have a very good international career. And if you have all 4, then you're an all-time great. If you think about some of the great West Indian bowlers that have ever been, then they've probably had all 4. But they're freaks. They're once in a lifetime players. But yeah, I think the message for me would be to, whatever your super strength is, get really, really good at that. Particularly when you're developing, if you think about between the ages 11, 17, 18 years old, get really, really good at whatever you're good at and whatever makes you stand out. So if that is bowling, full, straight, quick, bit of outswing, getting people nicked off and blowing people's obs over, brilliant, carry on doing that. If you're metronomic and you have to bowl a few more overs to get your wickets, but you don't go for any runs, carry on doing that, get really, really good at that. If you think about someone like Wokesy, as a young player, he was metronomic, never that quick. And then as he's grown, as he's got those overs in the bank, got a bit stronger, then his pace has come as well. He probably didn't, as a young player, he probably didn't try to overly run in a bowl too quick when he couldn't. So I think the overriding message for me would be get really, really good at your super strength.
Probably last question, I reckon. I don't know what we're doing on time, Greethers. Ask all of us. This is from Ellie Daniels. Any advice on practicing while we're in lockdown? What we all doing to keep busy?
Ellie Phillips, I think that one on.
Sorry, Ellie Phillips. I've got my names wrong. Issy, what are you doing?
I've done a bit of back garden cricket, my brother. But in terms of actual bowling stuff, I've been a bit of med ball stuff. So just kind of I do one where I kind of run in, and just as I'm about to kind of take off what my left foot as a right-hander, I'll get like my dad or someone to throw the med ball up and then kind of just slam it on the floor in front of me, trying not to take my head off. But I think that's quite nice. Just feels like you're getting through your action even without a ball or coming out your hand necessarily. But like we said earlier about just getting a ball in your hand and getting the feel of it, because I think that's something that for me, once I get into the season, and obviously at the moment we don't know when that could be, and that could be sprung upon us quite quickly potentially. So I think for me, I'd like to know that I know the ball's coming out of my hand nicely and I can feel it out of my hand, and I know that can happen.
Yeah. Pastor?
Pretty similar med ball stuff. Just taking over with the running in, catching and throwing it. There's not a huge amount I can do. We haven't got a huge garden. We haven't got. We're not blessed with a huge amount of space. So it's a lot of visualization, like getting the ball in my hand, doing grips, and then I'm trying to work out if I can put up a washing line with a sheet on to bowl into. But at the moment, I haven't even worked out to put the washing line up, so it isn't looking good.
I was gonna say, guys, we've got med balls. So this is the sort of thing that the guys are talking about. These are I got this off Newits. Was it Pastor, the website? Yeah, this was 20 quid on Newits, and just like Issy says, treating this like a football throw-in, like whether that be running in or whether just standing on the spot, slamming it into the ground, really does sort of recreate the bowling action and gets those bowling muscles like fired up. It really does. And then I just say, just do what you can, whether if that's.
Ollie, it was a great example from Liam there about the washing line and the sheet.
Yeah,
we've seen some. I've seen some really good examples over the last few weeks from our young boys and girls of them throwing or bowling into like an old mattress or an old duvet that just cushions, obviously becomes a bit of a net, if you like, just catches the ball, just softens the blow.
Yeah, 100%. Whatever you can do, like you say, if it's a duvet against the wall, or even if you find a wall that no one mind's getting marks on and you sacrifice a ball, just wanging it into there as fast as you can. Literally anything you can be doing at the moment. We obviously can't be playing games. Is better than nothing. So I'd just say, like I mentioned earlier, if you could do twice a week a little technical session with a tape ball and figure out, how to bowl in swingers and away swingers, and then maybe another session where you throw a med ball around or bowl a ball into a wall as fast as you possibly can. And I see that as a pretty good week, in my opinion. I don't know what you think, Jonesy.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think I'd just add on top of that, from a physical point of view, if you think about the explosiveness, the explosive nature of bowling, anything in the garden that you can do that's explosive will help. So little sprints, jumps, so broad jumps, high jumps, tuck jumps. You could create like a little circuit of doing little sprints, little shuttles, different types of jumps. Even if you got a trampoline, there's probably a few trampolines flying around. See how high you can jump. Make it a game. So you're trying to be as explosive as possible. And if you tie that into a couple of those sessions that you've said there, if you've got a tape ball or if you use the duvet option, whatever, that would be great. But you're probably not going to be able to recreate the actual physicality of bowling. So if you can subsidize that with anything that's explosive in nature, then you're probably doing as best as you can. Explosive push-ups, all that kind of stuff. Anything where you've got to move quickly, because if you think about how quick we want to be through the crease as bowlers, then that'll help out definitely.
This is just a personal thing. I always feel like hill sprints are much like bowling. Find a steep hill that's 20-30 meters long, sprint up it as fast as you can, walk down, and just do overs. If you do 4 overs of them, I'm telling you are shattered. And it's as close to bowling in terms of running you can sort of get. And I have mentioned this in previous weeks. Ryan and Jack, I'm sure you all know, the Bears S&C, I'll take that if you can see that. Search Bears S&C on YouTube. They've got some great videos up there, and it's all stuff you can just do in the garden. Whether you can have 2 bricks as weights, and it's really easy, and it's going to get you working hard. But that's about all you can do at the moment. We all know you're not allowed to be playing cricket, certainly. Yeah. Greta, have we got time for a few more questions, Greta, or are we?
I reckon a couple more questions tops, mate.
Okay, so this is a question specifically for Liam from Elliot White in the under-13s. After a long injury, how long do you feel 100% again? And are there any exercises you can do during injury that sort of replicate bowling, do you think?
For the bowling replication one, it's quite specific on your injury. So last year, I unfortunately slipped as I bowled a ball up in York when Ollie actually had a very good game, good ninefer. But I slipped and my hamstring ripped off the top of the bone, so I had to have surgery and had to have it pulled back up and put in place. You might be able to see the scar go up there. Don't know. But yeah, so for me, I couldn't do a huge amount to begin with. I was in a brace for 8 weeks and on crutches, and then even my first 2 weeks out of that was just almost remembering how to walk again and get around on it. So it's very specific to your injury about what you can and can't do. So during that period, I could literally do a little bit of body weight stuff on my right leg, not a huge amount, like a few single leg squats here or there, but then there's always the worry of if you lose your balance, well, how are you going to put your catch yourself? So we kind of erred away from those. We did more kind of single leg press ups, a lot of kind of body weight, slow movement, really nail your core. Like I said, it's very specific to injury. Like if you've done your arm, obviously you can keep running. Yeah. So it's very specific.
Just chipping in, I know that Elliot there has had is in the middle of a stress fracture recovery. I think that's why he's asking the question. So sure. I was just wondering whether, you know, Jonesy and anybody else specific to the stress fracture, and I think Gerhard has seen him through it, but it's always difficult, isn't it? What can I do? What can't I do? What's going to make it worse? What's going to make it better? But he's got an L4, I think, L4 stress fracture. So I don't know when anybody's got any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I've had a stress fracture myself in 2011. I can't remember. I think it might have been L4. I can't remember if I'm going to be completely honest. But for the fitness side of things and keeping yourself ticking, it was a lot of just core and very stable work. So planks, side planks, anything that's going to isolate your back to make sure there's no kind of movement side to side, but it's going to work you. I did a lot of press ups and such like in that period. And then it's really following the advice of, you got one of the best in the business if you're working with Mozzie. So follow his advice. When he says you can start doing a few little reps here or there, just take it easy. Don't push yourself too hard. Stress fractures they take a long time to come back from, but from my personal point of view, it was as much mental as it was physical. After I was past fit, it took me probably a month to be confident to bowl again. So don't rush it, take your time. There's no point coming back too soon and then being back to square one. Like I said, you've got one of the best of the business there, Mozzie, who's looking after you. So listen to him, and when you do get back to it, just go slowly. Like, we haven't got anything to be bowling for at the moment. So always just be thinking long-term picture. Would you rather be able to play properly next year, or are you going to rush back and potentially ruin another season?
Love it. Yeah, you're dead right. You know, listen to what Mozzie's got to say. But I remember when I had my stress, it was all core and all bum. You try to get your bum nice and strong, try to get your core nice and strong. They were sort of the key things, weren't they? Jones, we've got a question again from Vincent Barnes. I think you probably answered it. Okay, is bowling fast natural, or can it be taught? What are your thoughts on that?
I think if we're talking about express pace, and if we're talking about the quickest bowlers in the world, my personal opinion is that's natural. That's what you're born with. You need to have a certain genetic makeup in order to bowl 90 mile an hour plus. That's my personal opinion. But there's certainly ways to bowl quicker. So if you are, if you're not express pace, and there are certain elements of your action or certain elements of your training which could improve on, then you're probably going to be able to bowl quicker, definitely. And I think about the young players watching now. As they develop, that will just happen naturally as well. Because the body's growing. Certain chemicals are sort of mixing in their body, and like basically when you go through your peak height velocity, you're going to come out the other end, and you're probably going to be bowling quicker. But if we're talking about bowling express pace, then I think that's natural, but it has to be matched with the intensity as well of your training and that kind of stuff, your mindset, all those things. So that would be my take on it.
No, I agree, but 100%. There's no reason you can't. Someone like me, you can't make. Certainly can't make them quicker. You know,
Exactly. Yeah.
Never going to bowl 95 miles an hour, but could you get me bowling 82 miles an hour instead of 72?
And I think the important thing around this topic is, understanding your strengths, but also understanding your limitations as a player as well. So if you're not, if you're someone that realistically is never going to be an express pace, and pace is not going to be one of your super strengths, it's not going to make you stand out, then chasing that might sort of take up valuable resources that you can channel in other areas. Like you said, I completely agree with you there. You can always get someone a little bit quicker. So, going from 72 miles an hour bowling good areas to bowling 76 miles an hour good areas is obviously an improvement. Providing, if you're chasing that pace increase, providing that doesn't take away from anything else about your game, because you don't want to get quicker but then get less accurate. So I think it's just individualized, really, understanding your strengths and your weaknesses as a player, and that's quite difficult for young guys, particularly at the start of the pathway to the middle of the pathway. That will come more as you play more games and you get more experienced, and you play with other players. You start playing men's cricket. That's a really, really important environment, I think personally, for guys, developing players to play in, like good standard of men's cricket. So that would be my take on that.
No, I agree. Right, Greasers, I reckon we could go on. We definitely need another round at this, don't we? Because we've not even talked about a few things here. We haven't talked about white ball cricket. We've not talked about tactical. But we've had a few questions in, and somewhat. Was it Vincent again wants to know, just to finish off, a little finish off icebreaker? Is that even a term?
Ice closer.
Ice closer. Love that, Jonesy. Who is the best player we've all bowled at? So we'll start with Issy. Who's the best player you've ever bowled at?
I think probably the best batter I've ever bowled at. Bowling at Amy Jones in the Super League last year, when she got a 70 odd against us down at GS, and I was bowling at her, and there was a little part in the back of my head that was thinking, how am I getting her out here? And I think the best players kind of make you think that, and they kind of, when you're bowling at them, make you almost doubt your own ability. Think, oh, I'm actually going to get her out here when they're playing in that kind of form. But yeah, definitely Amy Jones, I reckon.
And she's a bear, so that's great.
And she's a bear, so yeah. Extra 5 points for that.
Exactly. 5 points for Gryffindor. Pasty?
It's quite probably in his prime. Chris Rogers was probably the toughest person to bowl to. He just had so much time. He just almost felt like he knew where you were going to bowl. I've played against Root, Williamson, and Smith, but all when they were towards the start of their careers. So Root is 2012, Smith was 2013, and Williamson was 2013, I think it was. So they're very different players now to they were then. So although now they are definitely better players and three of the best batsmen in the world, I'd say at the time, Chris Rogers, he just knew his game, and yeah, it was a long day in the field. That was.
Jonah, I mean, Vincent Barnes here said best wicket he's ever seen. Richard Jones getting Ian Bell out for naught at Berkswell. So
yeah, that was enjoyable. I enjoyed that. That was a good one.
We'll mention that next Wednesday, Greethers.
Yeah, I think for me personally, I was quite fortunate to play for quite a long time and play against some really, really good players. But I think the two hardest players that I really hated bowling at, and the first one would be A.B. de Villiers. Luckily, I only bowled at him once. It was a tour game when I was playing at Worcester. We played against South Africa, and I was actually bowling really well at the time. I was in a good run of form, and I think I can't remember. I got an early wicket, but then he came into bat, and I was bowling well. I was bowling as well as I could have done. And like Pasty said there about Bucky Rogers, it felt like he knew exactly where I was going to bowl it before I even let the ball go. And my best ball, which was top of off swinging away, he was just running it down to third man. He did it a couple of times for a couple of fours, and then eventually I had to put a third man in. And he kept running it down to third man and just sitting at the non-striker's end, and I just felt completely inadequate. But then more regularly would be Trescothick. I hated bowling at Trescothick. I I just never felt like I was anywhere close to getting him out. His bat always felt like it was a garage door coming down. Felt like it was about 2 feet wide. So yeah, those guys probably.
Love that.
How about you, OHD?
Vincent would be Sangakkara, particularly in red ball cricket. I can't remember what year it was. He bossed it. Might have been 2017. Just dictated the game. You know, he bowled it just before tea, and he was just blocking it to try and get to tea. And bowled like 3 maidens, and Belly was captain. Was like, "Oh, you start again after tea." And I was there thinking, I didn't bowl those 3 maidens because I bowled well. I bowled those 3 maidens just because he was just tapping it back. Bowled a couple of maidens after tea. And then he just thought, I've had enough now. And it took me for about 24 into 2 overs, and I was off. And he just sort of dictated the whole game. Sort of went down the gears to get to tea, got himself in after tea, and then just went ballistic after tea. It was just ridiculous. Just sort of did what he wanted with me, toyed with me. But Greethers, yeah, I think, you know, we could go on forever here, and I think we should probably try doing it again, shouldn't we? But thanks for your time, guys. And I don't know if Greethers wants to finish.
Yeah, for sure. And that's been, I mean, the aim of today was to give people a really in-depth look at the art of pace bowling, and from lots of different perspectives. And, you know, listening to that, you all got certain nuances about your game and how you've developed. It's been fascinating to hear that. And there's probably a couple of other technical areas to go into. But I think maybe next time, if everybody's all right to come back in a couple of weeks, same panel, it'd be brilliant just to maybe focus on the tactical nuances of the game. You know, how you set batters up, what fields you might set, look into white ball cricket maybe a little bit more. And I think people will be really interested to hear that, your views on the tactical side of things, because it's not very often we get the chance to do that, and I think there'll be quite a lot of learning. But if we just go round the room, if you like, and say thanks very much to Ollie. Thanks very much, mate.
No problem. Thanks for having me again.
And our performance coach in Jonesy, mate. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Paul. Cheers, mate. Thanks, guys.
And Liam, amazing. If people didn't know that you were called Pasty, they certainly do now.
Sorry, I should have explained that.
It's probably in relation to the way you deal with the sunlight, is it?
They literally had nothing
with Cornish.
Yeah, it's from Cornwall.
Cornish pasty.
Well, I've just thought about another way that you might be called pasty.
Literally, they had nothing else to call me at Gloss, and I had a pasty for lunch one day, and it started.
There you go. Fair enough. And Wongi, I've got nothing else to call you than Wongi. So thank you very much, Wongi.
Thanks for having me, Paul. Thank you.
Awesome. And on behalf of everybody watching, thanks very much, all of you, for your time. The next webcast actually is next Wednesday at 5 p.m. We're going to focus very much on batting next Wednesday with some very special guests, and more of that. I think Ollie just dropped it into conversation. Yeah, it's all right, mate. If people were listening carefully, they would have caught it. But more on that over the next 2 or 3 days. But that you can certainly set your diaries to next Wednesday at 5 p.m. same time, and we'll be focused on the area of batting. So thanks, everybody. Thanks for watching. Take care. All the best.